So you're clicking on this video because most likely it's hard for you to go again after one round of sex. Today, I've got a medical doctor in our midst to sort of make you understand why that happens and how you can improve on your performance. So do stay tuned. It's definitely going to be good. Today, we're going to dive into the science of something called sexual refractory. And I've got my favorite medical doctor joining me on my channel today to go through everything. So, Dr. Kelvin Owusu, so good to see you again. I hope you're well.
It's always good to be here, and thank you for inviting me. I'm excited.
Awesome, 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 awesome. So tell me something I don't know. I mean, in terms of what sexual refractory is, for a lot of people, this is the first time they may be even hearing those words put together. Feel free to elaborate.
Well, I mean, maybe they don't know the name of the phenomenon, but I think every sexually active man knows what we are talking about, and it's that period after orgasm and ejaculation where there's absolutely no arousal. You just want to be left alone. Sometimes you don't even want to talk to your partner. You don't want to do any of that. You just want to sleep. It's literally the recovery phase after sex. So that's the name, the refractory period. But every male, we don't like it, but yeah, we can't do much about it.
Right. Are there any factors that, for instance, increase the length of time or decrease the length of time when it comes to sexual refractory? I mean, how does it work?
As it is with everything else, your general state of health is a major factor. So how healthy are you? That's number one. Number two, age is also a factor. Because the younger you are, the more energetic you are, the what's it called? The shorter the refractory period. Versus as you grow older, you don't have as much energy, and so the refractory period tends to be a bit longer. And it makes sense because you need a bit more time to recover, even after ordinary exercise as you grow older. So these two things play the biggest role. So age and your general state of health. Of course, your hormonal balance also counts. So how are your hormones in good balance? That helps you to recover as well, because sex is pretty much an interplay between all the numerous hormones that play a role in the sex act. And so if everything is balanced right, then the refractory period is not as long as others tend to have it.
So, would you say the refractory period, for instance, can vary between when someone is, say, masturbating as opposed to penile vaginal sex or intercourse?
Yes, it does. And interestingly, it even differs depending on who you are even having sex with. Because even the level of arousal differs. If depending on who you are having sex with. If you are actually into it, I mean, and it goes both for males and females, because you know that females can orgasm depending on who they are having sex with. It doesn't matter how good or bad the partner is. Some females actually orgasm with a bad partner because they are so much into that partner. It's the same with men. Even though technically speaking, every sex act for a man would end in an orgasm. However, the intensity of the arousal, the intensity of the orgasm, varies depending on who they are actually having that intercourse with. And even if you are having intercourse with the same person, depending on your state of mind, your mood, you can have a more pleasurable sexual encounter with that same person today than it was yesterday. Or we see the same picture when it comes to the refractory period as well. Because you know yourself, sometimes after you've had your first round of sex, it takes you a bit longer to recover, because that day you may have been extra tired. And so it takes you a bit longer to recover before you can engage in a second round. Versus another time when you have set the mood, you have readied yourself for this day, you've put everything right, the music is right, the person is right. Your refractory period could actually be shorter, in that particular instance. So it's a bit tricky, but generally refractory period duration varies based on all the factors
That's
I've mentioned
interesting.
already.
So, I mean, I can infer from what you're saying that maybe the more attracted you are to someone, there might be a shorter refractory period.
Yes, and you'll be absolutely right. Of course, the reverse is also true, that in certain situations, due to that thing called anxiety, your performance might actually not be as good as you intended to. And because you begin to question yourself and give yourself unnecessary or maybe necessary gripe, you could actually suffer a longer refractory period, in that situation. So it's a tricky area. It's a tricky area. You pretty much have to know yourself and understand yourself and know what works for you as a man, so that you don't put unnecessary pressure on yourself. It's because anxiety can actually delay or prolong the refractory period. It's one of those things. Of course, depression also will do the same thing, but you see, with depression, the person might not even be able to perform at all. The erection will not even be established in the first place. So that you might never even get to the point where you get into that refractory phase. Some people with depression also suffer from anorgasmia. They struggle to even achieve the orgasm in the first place. So then they never even get to the refractory stage at all, which can also be quite frustrating. You see, so I'm not saying that to assume that it's a good thing. It's not a good thing at all. But your state of mind plays a big part in sex. Sex is more in the mind than physical. You know that, right? And so, yeah, your state of mind actually counts in heavily in this discussion.
Right, so before we go any further, I would like to introduce you to a sexual performance booster that I came across. The name of the product is called Joy Mode, and they're the proud sponsor of today's video. Now, Joy Mode is something you absolutely want to check out. I will share it with you right here. It is available online, and I will give you a link to go and purchase it for yourself. Essentially, whether you're happy or unhappy in the bedroom, why wouldn't you want to take this to be even happier? Now, all you need to do is to consume this 45 minutes to 4 hours prior to sexual activity, and you will come and thank me later. You will notice better blood flow, better erection quality, firmness, and increased sexual drive. So yeah, I mean, the next time you're ready for action, look out for Joy Mode, purchase some, and you should be good to go. But just because you are a sport and you're a viewer of this channel, I've got a special package just for you. 20% off your first purchase of Joy Mode. Just go to usejoymode.com/Jessica OS, and you should be good to go. I'll leave a link to the product in my video description, or you can enter Jessica OS at checkout for a 20% discount. Listen, if you want to spice things up in the bedroom and boost your sexual performance, Joy Mode is your best bet. And the best part is you can do it naturally without any prescription drugs. So, are there ways that people can go around it? Because I know it's a very big deal for a lot of couples, and especially if you're getting a lot of pressure from your partner to perform, right? Maybe you came early, for instance, and she's unsatisfied, and and this seems to be like a regular occurrence. Are there things men can do in this instance, for instance, to shorten that refractory period? And I do take into account everything that you said, the factors that could affect the reason why it takes people longer to recover, but are there ways around it?
So, simple answer, yes, there are ways around it. Now, the secondary answer is, are they effective? Now, that's a bit of a difficult one to answer. So as I've already indicated, your state of mind is very, very important. I think that's actually one of the biggest things that in a way you can control, because if you're able to handle stress, if you're able to handle pressure, if you're able to reduce the anxiety on yourself, it helps to reduce your or manage expectation. And once that happens, you're able to then go all out and perform at your best. Of course, it helps that your partner is all you are also into the partner, so that your it helps to shorten that recovery period. So that's one side. And the second aspect is, remember I mentioned that it's down to your general state of health. If you are hypertensive, for instance, and it's poorly controlled hypertension, remember that the act of sex would cause your blood pressure to go up. Orgasm would cause your blood pressure to actually shoot quite high. And so, if your blood pressure is so high, that refractory period is actually the period for your heart to return to normal as much as possible. And so, if that blood pressure doesn't come down, there's no way your body will channel blood into your penis to get you ready. So you need to make sure that you are in the right state of health. Or if you are aware that you are not as healthy as you ought to be, then don't put pressure on yourself to shorten the recovery period, because that could be the end of you. You see, because the body needs that period to recover. You see, I mean, for all intents and purposes, I mean, just being real, sex takes a bigger toll on the man than it does on the woman. Because the man does a lot more work. I'm talking about physical work than the woman would do, generally speaking, when it comes to sex. And so it pays for the man to make sure that he's fit enough for that stress, so that it doesn't overpower him. So that's why the refractory period is kind of important. I mean, there are so many theories about what the purpose of the recovery period is there to serve. But one of the more accepted ones is what I've just explained, that it's a period for the man to actually recover, some energy, for the next round. And remember also that typically the second round actually lasts longer than the first round. Generally, again, speaking in general terms, because I know some men is the reverse, but in general terms, the second round actually tends to last longer than the first round. And so if you think about it, you actually need a bit more time to prepare for that second round. So that's why the refractory period is more important than that. It's more important in that state of in after sex. Let me just put it that way.
Okay. All right. Do medications affect this?
Yes, again, the simple, straightforward answer is yes. Medication does affect it. Some medication can delay, it can even delay ejaculation. Some medications can shorten the refractory period. Some medication can prolong the refractory period. Now, it's a bit difficult to pinpoint and say this particular medicine was shortening it, because we don't want people flooding to the pharmacy to go and purchase any of those things. But generally, what do you call it? Medications that are used in treating mood, for instance, can also affect the refractory period as well. So if you are, for instance, you have anxiety or depression for that matter, and you are taking certain classes of medication, it could affect generally your sexual performance, number one, and by extension, it can affect the refractory period as well.
Right. So, I mean, with all the information that we have now, are there really ways that men can, should I say, boost their sexual function? I mean, knowing everything that we do, and especially when it comes to exercises, because you said a lot of lifestyle changes can heavily impact something like that. Do you have specific, maybe, examples that you can share with my audience today?
So, the factors we already mentioned age. You can't do much about your age, but you can do something about your health even at that age. However, let us understand that whatever your health status is, you are not likely to perform better than you were performing when you were younger. So it doesn't matter whether you're a healthy 60-year-old or a healthy 70-year-old, your 20-year-old self will always perform better than you. And so you have to understand that, because sometimes some men put too much pressure on themselves and end up, suffering exactly what they were trying to prevent. And so we need to accept that once you are growing older, your performance will dip. That's a fact. In fact, there's a concept of andropause, similar to menopause, where there's a suggestion that at some point your testosterone level begins to decline, and so it affects your performance, and among other things. So that is there. It's well established. So your performance will dip as you grow older. But having said that, if you are fit, your cardiovascular system is fit, you've been jogging or skipping or swimming for that matter, and your capacity or your endurance is up there, it helps improve your performance. So this is something that we should all consider. So everybody needs to be up and jogging at least 3 times a week, and you want to be doing this about at least 30 minutes to keep your heart healthy. So once your heart is healthy, automatically it will pump enough blood into your penis to sustain the erection that is needed, and will also help shorten the recovery period. So staying fit is important. And then we must also make sure that you are staying with the right partner, because your arousal or the arousal factor plays a major role. I mean, I've touched on it already, but I can't emphasize enough that the arousal is important. If you are into the person you are having sex with, it helps to reduce the refractory period, because you can't wait to get into the act again. So it helps reduce the refractory period. If the attraction is not there, the refractory period tends to be longer. So that needs to be established as well. If you are being treated for any chronic medical condition, I mentioned hypertension already, but there's also diabetes, or any other similar condition that affects your lifestyle, you need to get it under control, which will then help you enjoy sex and shorten the refractory period as well. when it comes to medication, we need to know the side effects of the medication that we are taking. You know, every medication comes with side effects, and some of those side effects could actually affect our sexual performance. So once you know this and you start experiencing it, you can report back to the health practitioner and they can do something about it. You need to limit your intake of alcohol. Yes. So alcohol is actually a depressor, which is interesting because, every time somebody wants to do something daring, they take alcohol, but alcohol is actually a depressor and actually reduces your sexual performance. Believe it or not, this has been proven scientifically, so it's not even up for discussion. Alcohol reduces your sexual performance and will increase your refractory period as well. So you need to limit your intake of alcohol. Now, in some situations, we do actually offer medical treatment for the refractory period. For instance, I mean, a couple who have been married for a while, and then suddenly the man wants to do it, but then it's just not working. There's that long refractory period, and by the time he recovers, well, the partner is asleep. That can be a bit distressing. So in such cases, we do intervene, and it's actually treated similar to how you would treat an erectile dysfunction. So yes, we do offer medical treatments when it is necessary.
All right, that's very good to know. I think you've pretty much dissected and bisected everything that has to do with this particular conversation, and it's pretty straightforward. So, if men want to sort of be able to go again, there's several factors that are at play and that they need to be cognizant of. So I'm so glad that we highlighted it in today's video. At least it's answered the questions of some guys in my DMs, because I get the weirdest of questions, Doc, trust me. But yeah, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll definitely catch you on another video, I'm sure.
Thank you very much for having me, and always excited.
Alrighty, thank you so much.